Hello everyone, my name is Roger Lissade and I love real estate. Welcome to my channel. This is episode 7. Today we're going to be discussing how to get started in real estate. As of late, I've been getting a lot of inquiries from prospective clients, people reaching out to me on Instagram or in one case, actual phone call, wanting to know how do they get started in real estate. Now, we've got investors and we have end users, basically people looking to purchase single family homes so that they can live in. And everyone is wondering what's going on with the market. Is the world coming to an end? The stock market is going down. Crypto's going down. Is real estate on its way down? I don't have a crystal ball, but like I said in previous videos, what I do have is data and the numbers, and at least right now, I would say based on the data numbers, it does not look like we're heading for a market crash. With interest rates going up, we've definitely seen a slowdown as far as sales, and we're starting to see an increase on little things like, well, I say little, but we're starting to see an increase on things like bankruptcies and foreclosures. Well, I said bankruptcy. Realistically, foreclosures are starting to go up. So what that is signaling is kind of a cooling off. However, that's not signaling a crash or that prices are going to go down anytime soon. Best estimates are saying we probably have at least a year and a half to 2 years of strong demand ahead of us. So with that being said, what are you supposed to do if you're like, hey, I'm looking for a house to live in, but I don't want to pay these crazy prices? Well, there's a couple different ways you could look at it. The first thing to look at is, what is the cost of you not purchasing now for a single family home to live in? All right, so let's take a look at the numbers. So, you know that rents are going up. I'm talking to people that have experienced rent increases of anywhere from 30 to 50%. Now, this is within my area, which is the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area of Florida. So it could be different where you are. But generally speaking, down here, people have seen dramatic rent increases. So you've got that to factor in as far as your costs, whether you should or should not buy a house now. So the thing you got to ask yourself is, if you buy a house, even at these high prices, will it make more financial sense? For some people that were paying $2,000 a month and now they're paying $3,000 a month, it might make a lot of sense. Because when you're renting, there's a few things people don't factor in. And I'm just going to use an anecdote. I met a guy a while back who was working a full-time job, and then a part-time job was practically almost a full-time job as well. And when I asked him why he was killing himself working so hard, he was like, well, I just bought a house and I've got this big mortgage and I just want to make sure that I'm able to pay the mortgage and have money left over, et cetera, et cetera. And, kind of inquired, asked him, so, what were you paying in mortgage and everything? And he told me, and I was like, wow, that's actually a bit more than you could have paid in rent. And without missing a beat, he looked me dead in the eye and he told me, he was like, hey, Roger, let me tell you something. If I miss a rental payment, I'm out of there in 30 days. However, if I miss a mortgage payment or a few mortgage payments, it might take 6 months to a year for the bank to get me out of my house, which is more than enough time for me to be able to correct that situation. And you know what? That really got me thinking. And I was like, you know what? He had a point. When you're renting, if in the event something happens, obviously you have less time to be able to do something about it if you experience some type of financial hardship. And every year, even in the most ideal circumstances, you're going to expect at least a 3 to 5% increase in rent. Now, when I did the numbers, that came out to roughly about every 10 years, you're going to be paying about 30% more than you were 10 years ago. Whereas with a mortgage, with the exception of people that get ARMs, if you get a mortgage, generally you're going to have a set amount of money that you pay every month. Now, obviously with a house, there are other things besides the mortgage, taxes, and insurance. There's maintenance, there are little issues that come up. But as far as the critical things, the mortgage that pretty much is going to stay the same. Taxes for the most part, you may experience a bit of a jump after the first year, but for the most part, especially in Florida with homestead, you're probably going to see a very gradual increase, but nothing as dramatic as what you could expect from renting. So that's something you guys got to factor in when making the decision of whether or not to purchase a home right now. The next thing you got to factor in are the interest rates. Now, everyone should know by now the interest rates have gone up, and they're predicting it possibly going up another point before the year is out. So then the question is, if you keep waiting, does this mean that as time goes by, for the same amount of monthly expense, you're going to essentially be able to afford less down the line than you can now, which is a cost, right, guys? So that's something else to factor in. And another thing to factor in is what's going to happen to home prices. We've seen a dramatic increase in home prices over the last couple of years. I mean, it's been substantial since 2019, and I was working with people in 2019 that wanted to wait, that are now basically kicking themselves in the butt because had they not waited, they could have purchased homes at much less price than they are now, and they would have had some nice equity had they done so. So, and that's another thing too I want people to factor in, that the longer you wait, the more the home prices will go up. So let's say you're looking at a house right now for $300K and you think that it's inflated. Well, let's say you're like, well, I'm just going to wait until the next crash. So that house for $300K, let's say 3 years from now, ends up becoming $375. Then there's a bit of a correction or pullback, and let's say house prices drop and it goes down to $350. Well, the $350 is still going to be more than the $300, and chances are interest rates are going to be higher than they are now. So that's kind of a double whammy, where that kind of shows you the cost of waiting. Plus, keep in mind the entire time your rent you've probably experienced a couple of rate increases, and that's money that could have been put into the equity of the home versus going towards your rent. All right. So we've covered that. Now let's talk about, well, where should you get started if you feel that if you actually want to buy a home. The first thing you got to ask yourself is, and I always take it from the aspect of like, what are your goals and objectives? If you're going to be in a particular area and you anticipate only being there a couple of years, yeah, buying a home is probably not the best move for you. Renting is probably better off if you're going to, leave. I would say if you don't plan to be in an area at least, I would say 5 years or longer, then buying a home may not make sense because it doesn't fit into your overall plan and your goals and objectives. Now, however, if you found a place that you know that you're going to be here for the next 10, 15, 20 years, you should absolutely buy a home. Because, I mean, there's just too many ways that it benefits you. And how do you get started? All right. So, you need to identify your goals and objectives. And like I said, one of the big things with that is if you're going to stay in the area and how long you're staying in the area. The next thing you want to do is identify what type of lifestyle you're looking to have. Are you a single person? Are you a young couple? Are you a young couple with children? Are you a couple with a lot of children? Are your children older? Are you someone that maybe the children are getting ready to go off to college and start their own lives? Are you an older couple looking to downsize? I mean, there's a lot of considerations to take into account when you're buying. But in all the considerations, the first thing you need to know is how much house can you actually afford? And the best way to do that is to speak to a lender, either, your bank or a mortgage broker. And the difference is between a bank and a mortgage broker is mortgage brokers can basically run your credit one time and then shop around to see and get you the best mortgage and the best deals. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, if mortgage brokers are great, why does anyone use your bank? Now, banks obviously understand that mortgage brokers are out there. If you have a long-term relationship, you've been at your bank for a substantial amount of time, you have a really good relationship, it may make sense for you to go to them, or you go to the mortgage broker first, see what the mortgage broker says, and then go to your bank and see if your bank could match it. So that all depends. But the main thing is you got to get your finance, with the exception of people that are paying cash, you got to get your finance worked out so you can have a concrete idea of the price range you should look at. All right, so I know a lot of you guys are saying, Roger, these prices are crazy. People are getting 20, 30, 40% above asking price. How does it make sense to buy a house in this market? The answer to that question is, for some people it will make sense, as I said before, if it fits into your long-term goals and objectives. And the next best thing to do after that is you've got to look into getting the best home within your price range. Now, when we're talking about a home, even though you think of a house, yard, etc., but in reality, what you're really looking for is not just a home and a place to lay your bed. You're looking for a house that affords a particular type of lifestyle. Some of the key things I would say to be conscious of when you're purchasing a home, besides things like age, condition, if it's on a nice block, if it's in a good neighborhood, etc., one of the biggest things is the school system. It's been proven that people will pay more for a very good school system. People will pay more for a house that's in a neighborhood with a very good school system as opposed to one that isn't. Why is that? All right, let's break it down. Let's say you have a house going for $400,000, but it's in, let's say, a C-class school system, which means it's decent, it's cool, not great, but it's decent. Now, let's say you have another house, that school system is A-rated. Those neighborhoods tend to be a couple $100,000 more for the same type house than, because it's in that school system. And I know this might sound as a surprise to some of you guys, and you're like, why would that be? And here's the reason for that. A lot of parents would prefer to pay more for the house as opposed to paying for private school. Because the reason that is obviously, you're investing in your children and it's not a direct return. However, if you pay more for the house and you put the kids in the school, you have a better chance of getting a return on that investment directly as opposed to buying a house for less money, but then spending that money every year for the private school, which for you guys that look, private school has gotten extremely pricey. You're talking private schools that are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year per child. You could see how those numbers could add up if you have 2 or 3 children and you just make that outlay and buy the higher price home up front, which you won't have to actually spend that 20, that 15, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is every year out of pocket, because that extra amount that you pay on the house is going to be coming out of the mortgage, and it's not going to be tens of thousands of dollars extra from a $400,000 house to a $600,000 house. So school system is one of the things that people are willing to pay more for the reasons I just gave you guys. All right, so what else do we have? Another thing that I've spoken about, and this works for both investors and end users, mass transit coming in to a neighborhood or newly established. I cannot stress this enough. if you're aware of a neighborhood that, has the home that you want, a good school system, and it's within walking distance or relatively, short drive to incoming or newly established mass transit stop, that is also a safe bet. What are some other things you could look out for? If you know that a neighborhood, either Whole Foods is coming into a particular neighborhood or just got a neighborhood, or supermarkets of that caliber, that's another good sign. And that would be a good place. That would be a safe bet. Another example would be is if you see luxury homes or apartment buildings that are being built within close proximity to the area that you're looking at. That is another good excuse me. That is another good sign that that neighborhood will probably appreciate over time. And let me think. Some other things that obviously you want to buy a home that's close to a major economic employment center, and by close is going to vary from place to place. In some cases, most people are only willing to drive, excuse me, 25 to 30 minutes. In other cases, it's 40. But yeah, you want to make sure that it's close, whether it be via mass transit or by driving to a major economic employment center, good school system. Well, obviously one of the things too is if it's close to a very popular supermarket chain like Whole Foods or Publix or Kroger, that's another good plus. And another one, and these are kind of like optional at this point, if it's near, and by near we're talking like maybe 5-10 minute drive to hospital, police station, fire departments. If you can get all of those or most of those criteria in the house that you're happy with and that you like, it's a safe bet that that house over the long term is probably going to appreciate more than houses that don't have those qualifiers. And that also works for investment properties as well. So starting off, let's recap. You definitely want to figure out what your goals and objectives are. Then you're going to want to know how much house you can afford, whether you are an investor or an end user. And you're going to want to you want to get financing taken care of. So you want to talk to a lender or a mortgage broker to get that analyzed. And then you're going to, once you find and you know the type of house that you're looking for, you're going to want to look at neighborhoods with, number one thing would probably be really good school system. Next thing would be if it's near a rapid transit stop, or if it's or if they're going to put something like that in the area. And then the next one is near a good supermarket chain. And then optional things, well, not optional, but the next one is it's got to be within what's considered the average commute for a major employment center. And then you start looking at things like arts and entertainment. I say arts and more like shopping and entertainment. How close is it to where a lot of people go, do their leisure shopping, restaurants, entertainment, etc. And then you have some optional things like how close is it to a hospital, police station, fire station, etc., etc. And yeah, guys, that's in a nutshell the things you should look at to get started. Now I kind of mix it up. Now for more on the investment side, getting started off, what you guys could do is join local investor clubs in Miami-Dade County and Broward County. We have DREA, which is Dade Real Estate Investors Association. And then in Broward, it's the Broward Real Estate Investors Association. So they have these throughout the United States. And these are a great source to start networking and getting to know people that are in that space. And they can introduce you and get you some good information as far as areas that you should be looking at and possibly target to invest. And yeah, I think that is a really good way to get started. I will keep updating you guys. I don't want to make this video too long, and there's some other tips, but I'll keep updating you guys on ways to get started, because I know a lot of people hit me up wanting to know what should I do now, etc., etc. And actually, I did forget one thing, and this goes back to the financing. Guys, you absolutely must know what your credit score is, what's on your credit report, because obviously that's going to factor into the financing. So everyone should be monitoring their credit, and should be using your credit wisely. Rule of thumb is you don't want to have more than 30% utilization on any of your credit cards or overall credit, and you want to keep it below that. I mean, if you can, basically, I just say just pay it off every month. I mean, you know, don't charge an amount unless it's an emergency that you know you won't be able to pay off by the end of the month. And keep that utilization down. And yeah, use credit cards when you go to the supermarket, etc., on things that you would normally spend, so you could build up those points, which is another way to, save a little money, build up some points while building up credit. But anyway, guys, I hope that helps. I know I've been kind of not posting as regular as I wanted, still trying to kick this cold, but this cold's kind of making it a little tough for me to speak for long periods of time without coughing. But I'm going to be posting more regularly. And guys, I appreciate everyone who watches my videos. If you have any questions or any comments or anything you'd like to see me discuss, definitely hit me up in the comments. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And also let me know what you guys think about having some live shows. I may start doing those very soon. Just working on a few things to make these videos a bit more interesting and entertaining. But anyway, guys, I'm Roger. Thanks for checking me out, and I'll be back soon.